Thank you. Thank you. Um, Morning, everyone. My name is Michael, arborist here and caretaker at the Grant Garden. I just want to welcome everyone for another Saturday speaker series. Now, if the weather outside hasn't given you the itch to get out into your gardens, today's presentation definitely will. It's my pleasure to introduce Maggie Reilly, a native garden enthusiast and vice president of the Wild Ones of Mohawk Valley. The Wild Ones of Mohawk Valley, this is a nonprofit organization that promotes native landscapes through education, advocacy, and collaborative actions. Maggie's talk today, titled Embracing the Evolution of a Compassionate Landscape, is a follow-up to her talk, The Power of a Compassionate Landscape, given as part of last year's speaker series. This was a great presentation that can still be caught on YouTube today. And now, since I don't have any great gardening photos like this, I'll turn the floor over to Maggie.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So before I don't think this is on. Okay, how's that? Not working? They said it's a little finicky. Is it finicky?
It's a little, yeah. Sorry.
I usually don't need a mic, so.
Okay, that was one more time. Yeah, thank you.
Can you guys hear me now? Testing? Okay. I usually don't stay still, so I don't know if that's gonna help you or not. It's not working? Fuzzy?
Yeah.
All right, forget it?
Yes.
It's fine with me. Okay. So before I actually get started today, I did want to acknowledge what is going on the world stage, with all the unrest and instability. Just wanted to recognize the impact that that is having on so many people, the earth itself, and the world community. I thought it was an appropriate thing before I start talking about gardening, but I will say that hopefully what we are doing here today actually is a positive impact. So. So,
Thanks for speaking up.
okay, I can do, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get this thing out of my face.
Yes.
Because there. How's that? And if I can move my hands and not hit it, that's even better because this is how I talk.
Yeah.
So, thank you all for coming here today. It's nice to see so many people. I also want to thank Krista Campbell for inviting the Wild Ones back to speak at this wonderful speaker series. Just a little bit about myself. I am a lifelong gardener who just loves plants. I started out taking a lot of horticulture classes, but really where I learned the most about gardening was when I was experimenting in my gardens. I wanted to see how the plants grew, what they liked, what they needed, and that was mainly with traditional plants. And so now I'm back to experimenting again, but I'm doing it with native plants. And sometimes people would ask me, why am I ripping out all those beautiful plants that I started with for something that people would call weeds? But some of you also heard my first talk, and I talked about where I was from. I'm from Northern New York, where I learned to love the land. My backyard was a huge vegetable garden and a strawberry patch. Just beyond that were the banks of the Racket River, and it was lined with a woodland. That woodland is where I spent a lot of my time. And my mother influenced me and said not to be picking all those trilliums in there, but hopefully I listened. I am a retired environmental engineer who spent a lot of time working on stream restoration projects that used basically native plants. My husband and I, John, we live in New York Mills, where we are transitioning our gardens over to native plants. So like I said, my mother influenced me, but also what influenced me was when we would um, travel over to where my relatives were in Canada. They lived in these old farmhouses, stone farmhouses that had cottage gardens on surrounding them. And my mother and aunts would be up front talking, and I would hang back in the plants, and they were just so beautiful. And I just love them. And so, if you come to visit the house, which you're all welcome to come to, one of the things I love to do is walk the yard and talk about the plants. So you're all more than welcome. Today is the sequel to my first talk, and we're going to talk mainly about the native plants that are in those gardens. Very functional, very biologically, ecologically beneficial, and still very beautiful. I'm going to get used to this computer a little bit. But before I get started, I want to recognize and honor the original stewards of the land, and that is the land that we're on, the Haudenosaunee Indigenous people. And we need to really stand next to them to protect Mother Earth, and we also need to stand next to them to learn to be better stewards of this land. And I'm not exactly sure where. Let me just get myself. Okay. So let's get started. So Michael did say about that we are the Mohawk Valley chapter. Our nickname is actually Lawns Gone Wild. And I am the vice president of the local chapter. And I can't talk enough about the sense of community. Our bonds and our friendships have really grown right along with this native plant movement. Our mission is to preserve biodiversity. We do that through preservation, through restoration, and basically planting native plants. We have a lot of fun. Our president, Jennifer Geiger, puts out a wonderful newsletter. So if you want to sign up for that, it truly is wonderful. And we really do have a lot of fun. And as you've heard me say, who wouldn't want to be called a wild one at this stage of our life? Did that move? Yes. Okay. So to go back to why did I actually call this embracing the evolving landscape? Because gardening is extremely dynamic, and native gardening is even more dynamic. I talk about retrofitting existing planting spaces, but like I said, I am ripping out some of my most treasured, beautiful plants to replace them with something that people might call weeds. A very good friend of mine who is here is taking some of my most treasured and collected hostas to feed them to her deer as deer bait so that they don't go into her new native gardens. And so when I first started, I said, I am never ripping out my daylilies. Well, most of my daylilies are gone because they're just too static. And I talk about native plants moving around. We leave the seed heads now. They blow around and go to where they want to go, and the birds take them. And so, it is extremely dynamic. We no longer till, we no longer use pesticides, and we don't mulch with mulch. We mulch with plants, and we call that green mulch. And so the way we're thinking about our gardens is really different now. And I'll get into it more, but it's more of a purpose, our gardens are. And so we're making different choices in our gardens. We're leaving the seed heads through the winter. I have a brush pile in my gardens, and I leave the leaves. And if you've been to my neighborhood, that's a really big deal, I will tell you. And we're changing times because of climate change, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But the thing that is great about doing something different and having it changing all the time is we're experimenting again with new plants, but I'm learning so much more again, and I'm really enjoying the idea of a ever evolving landscape. And so I would be remiss if I did not talk about climate change. And Margaret Roach, she is a journalist. She writes gardening articles for the New York Times. She wrote an article about her relationship with her gardens, and she said, "I thought I knew you." And I really can relate because all of those decades of experimenting with my plants and gaining experience, I no longer can rely on that because the gardens and our environment is changing so much and so fast due to climate change. The pollinators, the plants, us gardeners, we cannot keep up with that rapid change. And you know what's happening. We are having flash floods. We're having what they call flash droughts. We have extreme heat, a tremendous amount of wind. We have short springs. We have short falls. We have short bloom times, and that all happens in one gardening season. So, it is definitely changing times. And because of that, we are developing a real ongoing commitment to our gardens, or what I'm going to call our little patch of this earth. There is less year to year consistency. We're changing our habits, and my father would turn over in his grave if he knew I was watering established huge plants like my trees, like my river birch, a katsura. I'm actually watering my gardens, which I have never watered perennial beds, but in those long droughts that we're having in the fall, we're having to do that. The other thing that I'm going to start to do, a little nerdy, but again, what would an engineer do? Is I'm going to start keeping track of what I observe in the gardens. I want to know how long the bloom times are. When did the plants emerge? When did they start blooming? When did they stop? What pollinators were on those plants and when? What was the rainfall like? What was the heat like? So I really want to keep track of anything that's critical to the gardens. We need to be planting for early spring, which is your witch hazels. You want to plant for late fall, like your asters and your goldenrods, because we have no idea if our bloom times are going to extend or if they're going to shift one way or another. So we've got to have the plants there for the pollinators. And stress that we need to put the plants in the right place that they need and want to be. We need to plant for the condition and also for our ecoregion, because what that's going to do is it'll make your gardens more resistant and more resilient, I should say, to climate change. The other thing I want to do is plant a wide diversity of plants because you want to have continuous blooms, but also you want to have a really healthy ecosystem for the pollinators to come to. People have asked me, "Maggie, are you going to start taking plants from the south and putting them into your gardens?" And I say, no, not yet, because the science is not there yet. We do know that our ecoregions are going to shift north because of the temperatures, but we are in ecoregion level 3. Our ecoregion is the Eastern Great Lakes and the Hudson Lowlands, and it's shaped somewhat like this. I will take plants from the southern part of our own ecoregion, but I'm not just going to willy-nilly start taking plants from the south, okay? I do have on here plant native trees today for tomorrow. And we are talking, when I say the patch that we're going to talk about today, it is going to be suburbia. It's going to be like a third of an acre down to like a quarter of an acre. So we happen to have 4/10 of an acre, and we have 41 trees on that lot and a house. So, and some gardens. So we do, and you can obviously plant trees such as that northern red oak. So what am I actually going to talk about? Last time you heard me talk about being a compassionate gardener. Well, I'm going to go even beyond that and talk about being a gardener, being a guardian of our little patch. Also going to talk about transforming suburbia into a welcoming and restorative sanctuary, and why we need to do that. We'll look at it from a human perspective, but also it'll be functional and ecologically beneficial. As Doug Tallamy says, let's bring nature home. Well, we're going to create your outdoor home into nature. And then what everybody wants, plants, plants, plants. We'll go over native plant communities. We might be here a while. We're going to go over native plant communities. We're going to go over some of my favorite combinations and some of my favorite plants. And then I'll take questions from you all and also people who are on Zoom. So going from a gardener to a guardian of our little patch of this magnificent earth is kind of like, our native gardens are a little more relaxed. Well, we need to get more relaxed, let go of that grip on our gardens and become guardians. The other thing I'm going to talk about is that reciprocal relationship that we need to have with the land. Humans have taken so much for so long from this earth that we need to give back and we need to heal the earth. And how are we going to do that healing of the earth? Well, we're going to perform acts of restorative kindness. That's what Mary Reynolds talks about. She is the author of We Are the Ark, and she talks about those acts of restorative kindness, but also about being a guardian of the land. And so when I think of a gardener, I think of them creating something beautiful, but it is for themselves. It is what I want. And it dictates where the plants go, what plants I plant, and if I want it in a certain place, I might even change the land. So we're controlling, and it is a sole creator, the gardener, where a guardian of the land supports as much life as possible and brings true nature back to life. You're letting go, you're relaxing, and you are guiding the land. You're letting the native plants go where they need to be. You're listening to what the land wants and what the land needs. So we're going to go from that controlling and micromanaging to letting go of that grip on our gardens. We're going to become more relaxed, and we're going to actually be guardians of our land. And I'm going home and I'm going to tell everybody you're going to get less neat, you're going to get less tidy, and we're going to make our little patch a dynamic piece of nature and a little less static piece of art. As much as I believe nature is extremely artistic, I do not believe it's static. So we are going to go back into those gardens and keep evolving. All right. So how are the guardians of the land going to develop that caring, compassionate relationship with the land? And with any relationship, you have to be together. So we as guardians need to immerse ourselves in that land. And so we have to have a give and take with it as any healthy relationship. So we need to give back. You're going to see that when I talk about nature, I show a lot of photos of woodlands or forests, because when we started this group, this Wild Ones chapter, we took a little course called Caring for Our Piece of the Earth, and there was about a dozen of us, and the majority of us had a woodland or a forest in our past, where we really, that's where our initial bond and caring for the earth came from. So you're going to see some beautiful photos there. So my husband took this one. This is in Scotland. That is gorgeous. And so, observing and appreciating nature, it makes you start to have a look at nature so it's not a resource anymore. You start to have more of a relationship that is of gratitude responsibility, and caring for the land. And so that gratitude fosters the idea that we want to share our abundance with others. Robin Wall Kimmerer wrote a book called The Serviceberry, and in it, she talks about a gift economy. A gift economy is based on everyone doing well and nature. So there is that harmony between humans and nature, and we only use what we need and give back a little more. And that whole giving back and sharing is so that all flourish, humans and nature. And maybe, just maybe, our little patch of land can assist with that harmony while we are trying to find peace and justice for all beings. And so if you read Aldo Leopold's quote here, he says that you need to go beyond pretty. And you may have seen this slide before. And this is why John and I are transitioning our gardens over to native plants, is we really want our gardens to have more value. When I gave a tour a couple of years ago at the house, one of the people said to me, you know, Maggie, you know how your gardens are different than all the other gardens? It is filled with life. And that's what John and I want to do, is we want to provide life. We want to have that reciprocating relationship with our little piece of the earth and give life for future generations. Okay, so most of you asked me for Natives 2.0, so I'm going to review native. You already knew why natives are good, what we talked about before. So I'm just going to go over a little bit of review. So what is a native species actually? A native species has evolved over a given time so that it has an essential relationship with the other species, but at a given location, okay? They have that complex relationship with each other, but it's at a certain location. What's biodiversity? Biodiversity is the variety of life on Earth. And it goes down all the way down to the variety, the genetic variety in the species itself, as large as the habitat and ecosystems we live in. That variety of the species itself is extremely important because that allows the plant to be more resilient to change, such as climate change, be able to change. I try not to use cultivars. Cultivars don't have that quality. They've been cloned, and so they're not as resilient. I will use a cultivar that is smaller, but not if the leaf has changed or the flower itself. If I'm ripping out all those beautiful plants, I'm going to try and use as many straight species as possible. So what is an ecosystem? An ecosystem is that combination of all those interacting species, and again, at a certain location, but they act as an ecological unit, okay? And you'll see that I used a spider web to represent an ecosystem. If we lose a few of those strands, I guess it's okay. But if we lose too many, it's going to collapse. And that's what you hear now is biodiversity collapse. And that's what we're talking about. So we need to be careful how much we lose. And where do the humans, we're a species, aren't we? Where do we belong in that circle? We think of ourselves as top of the food chain. There is no top and there is no bottom. It is a circle. So I like to think of the indigenous people as being in that native ecosystem that we're so striving for. And I talk about diversity. The human species is as important with biodiversity, but I believe it is just as important in our human species. So when I say let's get back to nature, I mean it in our little suburban lots, in our backyards, in our front yards, and you will want to be in it. So that's what we're going to transform our little patch into a restorative sanctuary. And wouldn't you want a place where you can have mental well-being these days, relax, get rid of some of that day-to-day stress? We're going to look at how to do that. It will be functional. It will be ecologically beneficial, beautiful. Some of you have asked me to go over hedgerows, and hedgerows are part of a sanctuary. So I will go over that. So just a little bit of garden design review, and this is one slide. It was the whole previous presentation, but what does the land want? The land wants native plants from our ecoregion. We need to address the non-native plants, what some people call invasive species, and not just invasive species, but some aggressive native plants, like let's say Canadian goldenrod. We would not want that in a small lot. It would take over. So we need to address that. And don't forget from the first talk I gave that we want to mimic nature. We want to plant in layers. We have our canopy trees, our understory trees, large bushes, small bushes, herbaceous material, ground cover. And don't forget those keystone plants, because keystone plants are the ones that allow for the whole life cycle of some of our species. And so we're going to plant densely, we're going to plant in masses, we're going to plant in drifts, we're going to repeat them. We don't forget color and texture and bloom succession and focal points. And you're like, oh my gosh, that this is supposed to be fun. But relax, let your creative juices flow and really try to enjoy the design process. So this is starting to create a restorative sanctuary, but don't think you have to end up with a plan like that. I just want to use that to show you. But you'll see I have names here, Heather and Zoe Evans. They are a mother and daughter that are starting to do native garden design. I've watched some of their webinars. They are a hoot together, but they do this just a little bit differently than what we've talked about before. So the first thing they do is get your plot of your land, but they break it up into zones, functional zones. Maybe you've got a wet area, how humans are going to use it, and you identify those. Here we have a pond, we have a sitting area, we have a play area, and a deck. The next thing they do is they say, take a path, start in the front yard and go all the way around the house, and then connect what we call those destinations or those distinct areas. This one doesn't do it that much, but I would definitely connect to the sitting area, to the play area, to the deck. And those areas or destinations we call rooms. And then the cool thing that they do that is a little different is everything else that's left. You've identified where you're going to use the space. Everything else that's left is native plants. And that is a cool thing. And how I started, and probably how many of you started, is, okay, I need a garden up at the mailbox. I need a garden to hide that ugly green utility thing. I'm going to stick a few plants in the front, some in the side, some in the back, some big trees, a vegetable garden. And then the rest of it, oh, maybe I'll let the kids play someplace, But the rest of it turned into grass. And that's not how this is done. So I think some of us that need to retrofit, I think we could do that. I only have a little bit of grass left. I could turn that into plants. Hope John's not listening. So restorative sanctuary, the attributes for a restorative sanctuary, it's the sense of enclosure, to have rooms, got to have seating. If we're making that outdoor home, just like the house, we got to have some furniture out there, and you want to have views. But how we're going to do that sense of enclosures, we're going to do it with plants. Plants, they make us feel safe. It makes us feel like we have some privacy. My neighbors don't even know when I'm out there. But they don't make us feel closed in, like as if we put up a stockade fence, okay? And we're going to start with our trees and shrubs. They add structure. We're going to divide our spaces into rooms. We're going to have focal points, views. But all while we do this, we are adding biodiversity to our sanctuary. And in a small space, this is a very small space here, you can use tall plants and they actually make a small space feel bigger. We're actually going to divide our spaces into rooms and we're going to use plants to do that. And when we do that and you go from room to room, you stop, you pause, and when you get there, what a nice surprise. We're going to add seating. We're going to add art. I think art is extremely important in the garden, and functional pieces like ponds and bird baths. But look at this. This is a very small, narrow, long space that they have used. And they have that sense of enclosure. They have, if you look, they've got trees. They've divided their spaces with plants. They have a pond. They have seating with the Adirondack chair. They have more seating in the back. They have done a really nice job of making a restorative sanctuary. And so that sense of enclosure, how we're going to actually do that, we're going to do it with the design of a hedgerow. Many of you have asked for it. This is Margaret Roach's in New York State. She has used many native plants, and that is a gorgeous hedgerow. But we're going to start with our larger bushes and small trees. And depending on how big your hedgerow is or your area, you could use large trees. But that's going to be the backbone of your hedgerow. I know you want to start with flowering plants, but we're not going to do that. Maybe. But we're going to vary the size and shape of our bushes. They may have different color, different fruiting, but we're going to vary them. We're also going to plant in an alternating pattern. We're not going to plant in straight lines because that adds density. Okay. And we're going to use different smaller shrubs because we can tuck them in, fill the gaps, and we can add cohesion and continuity that way. And we're going to plant close. We're not going to have that, one of these here, one of these there, and lots of mulch in between. We're going to plant close so they overlap. Okay, so this is from, and you're like, oh goodness, but this is from Prairie Nursery's website. That is an excellent website. You can get all sorts of information about plants. You can buy plants, but they have a lot of educational material, and this is a great website. So let's talk about this design a little bit. I love the plants they have chosen, serviceberry and a viburnum, dogwood, chokeberry, honeysuckle. These are all native to our ecoregion, and some of them are even keystone plants. I love the fact that they used a serviceberry, and look where that is actually placed. If you remember from my last talk, we talked about the golden section ratio. Not smack dab in the middle. There's a shorter distance, a longer distance. I won't go into the equation, but the longer distance is about 1.5 times the shorter distance. Okay. And you look at it and you're like, well, that thing's only 24 feet long. I need 75 feet. Well, flip it and repeat that same hedgerow if you want, and you'll have consistency all the way through. So let's just look at it. I had said we're not planting in a straight line. So what I would do with this design, that middle B right there, I would take that and I would push it back a bit. Okay, then you can take those red twig dogwoods and tuck them in. You could also, there is a plant called nannyberry. It's a viburnum, and I've seen them, they're multi-stemmed, just like that serviceberry is multi-stemmed. We would prune the stems on the bottom, have the foliage on the top, and that nannyberry is similar to a serviceberry, but smaller, so you could mimic it if you wanted to. Those three, the dark greens that are underneath that serviceberry, those three black chokeberries, I would actually put those in the back because they can have scraggly bottoms too. And then you could see through the serviceberry, see those, but at their feet, I would pull those 3 bush honeysuckles up to the front. Bush honeysuckle is very full, flowy. You'll see pictures of it in just a minute. And then you'd have that consistency of the the bush honeysuckle with the chokeberries in the back and on the edge. And then, of course, you're going to add herbaceous materials for the pollinators and ground covers. I'm only going to talk about this one fast, and the reason why I really like this one is it's got evergreen arborvitae hedge in the back. This is probably the only place I would use a straight line, but the nice thing about this is, say one of your plants in the front isn't like looking so hot, and it's got a gap. Well, now you've got green evergreen in the back. It also gives a nice backdrop to your hedgerow. So I really, really like that. And in any hedgerow, even the one before, I would definitely use evergreens. They're good for wildlife, but they also add texture for year round, and I just like them. So I don't know about you, but all those circles and everything don't really do much for me. Like, you're probably going, I don't even know what she was talking about. But I like to do this. I like to make sketches. When I first started a class, there was a woman who taught us to do this. And I really like to do this. This is you looking in that hedgerow. So that is that one we just looked at with the arborvitae up there in the right-hand corner. But you can see the arborvitae hedge is there. I have chosen serviceberry because it is my most favorite understory tree. I also like pagoda dogwood. You could use that. For the larger bush in front of the hedgerow, in front of the arborvitae, I picked an arrowwood viburnum. It's big, it's full, it's really nice. You could also use a gray or a silky dogwood, but don't forget, you got to take your conditions into account, and silky dogwood likes some moisture. Okay, I would still use the red twig dogwoods for their red twig, of course, in the winter, but they are a beautiful plant all year round. And then you see that yellow, it's the yellow shrubby St. John's wort, and I'm going to show you those. But it's a nice little round plant. It has little yellow flowers on it continuously through the summer. The pollinators, the bees just love it. You could also use a snowberry or a smaller fothergilla. But I love bush honeysuckle. I would keep that in the front. And depending on how long your hedgerow is, you could use grow low sumac with that, but you would have it in drifts and masses and repeat that. So that is what you can do for hedgerows. And this is a year-round biohedge or hedgerow in Syracuse. This is Janet Allen. She is the president of the Syracuse Wild Ones. These pictures do not do it justice, but I wanted to show you what they look like in all of the seasons. It is extremely biodiverse, and she has dogwoods and chokeberries and mountain mints and joe pies and Culver's root, milkweed. She's got everything in there. But if you see this in person, many of us in the room have, it is beautiful. It is simply beautiful. And I do have a lot of hedgerow resources. I actually have a lot of resources throughout this whole thing. I'm going to have my email up at the end. If you want to email me to get these resources, you are more than welcome. And as they said, these talks are taped. So the fun part, we got to the plants. And so we're going to do plants, native plant communities. I'm going to go over something really quick called matrix design, but I'll try and talk as fast as I can. So what is a native plant community? A native plant community is basically a group of plants that get along with each other. One isn't going to outcompete the other, but they're all suited for that location. Okay, it could be a wetland, could be a woodland, could be a prairie, so they get along. And you're like, well, how do you know if they get along? We have this sociability index or rating. So we go from 1 to 4. 1 is, you stay put, you're a clump, you're pretty well behaved. Number 2, you start to spread around the mother plant, but don't want to go too far from her. 3, you're getting a little aggressive. If there's a gap, you'll fill it in when it blows over. And 4 is, yeah, I'm going to take over. If I like this area, I'm taking over the whole thing. But don't forget, we're choosing the plant for the site. You don't change your site so you get those plants you want. Okay, sorry. I do compost, and because we're in suburbia, we probably had our topsoil stripped, and like me, I brought in truckloads of topsoil. So I do compost and I do add that to my gardens. I don't have what Marianne has, liquid gold compost, but I do have compost. These plants are a combination that I have in full sun, gets nice moisture, and they seem to be getting along quite well. Okay, so you did ask me for natives 2.0, but this is kind of like natives 2.5 or 3.0. To determine this plant sociability, it is not on a plant tag, and you're going to have to do some research. Okay. Benjamin Vogt does a lot with this, and he has come up with a starter list. He's got 50 of them, and he does have their ranking. Okay. But I'm looking at this blue mist flower. That is a gorgeous plant. And I want to plant it with blue stem goldenrod and whitewood aster. Blue stem goldenrod has nice stalks. It'll take care of itself. And the whitewood aster and this blue mist flower pretty much have the same sociability ranking. But the way I found that out is I went to my favorite website again, Prairie Nursery, and you will look up the description of the plant. Okay. And so I want the blue mist flower. It does spread, says it spreads. It likes partial shade. It likes moist soil. It can handle full sun, but only if it's getting enough moisture. It is a vigorous spreader by rhizome and seed. So this little guy is going to get a 4 or even a 4 plus. I do have this plant. I have it in full sun, but it is not moist. It's dry. So it spreads, but it's not going crazy. I would look at it in more than just one place. Mount Cuba and Prairie Moon, I looked it up, and Lady Bird Johnson said it was a pest. I don't believe it's a pest. But that's how you would look this up. And the reason we're going to do this is, in one way we could start to create some of these is with matrix design. I do not have time to go over the whole design, but what it is you see that round oval there. I want to create a dense layered planting underneath that birch. And I don't want to mulch. I want to have that green mulch. I want to have plants. And we call it matrix design. I also want to have a soft landing for all those critters that need the leaf litter and everything in the wintertime. But the matrix, the reason it's called that is we actually set up a matrix. You can just use grid paper, and it's going to be 12 inches on center. And wherever those horizontal and vertical lines intersect, that's where we place our matrix plant. That is the green mulch, okay? We're going to plant drifts and masses, as you can see, of other plants, but this will give continuity and it will fill in so that you don't have any space anymore. The one that you can see he chose here, which is common, is a sedge. And so its continuity has other drifts of plants, and that's what we would go over. I do plan on having another talk, and we will do just designs of plants. The one that I actually picked two. I couldn't just pick one. So I picked a sedge and a fern, and truthfully, you could leave it just that. The textures of those two together would be beautiful, but I would like to end up, and this is actually Benjamin Vogt's side yard, and those are some of the plants I would really like to use under that birch. But that is what you would get with a matrix design. Okay, so here we go. I can't go over every single one of these. We are not going to do cookie cutter here. Remember, you're all going to go home and you're going to experiment in your gardens. And one thing I will tell you is if I've put a plant in the wrong place, it's not really doing well. I move plants like people move furniture. So I will move my plants to a place where they actually like it. So we do experiment. The one on the left is on the edge of a woodland. That is a gorgeous combination. That is right behind a very low stone wall that was used to edge that entire front of the woodland. So it is partial shade and it gets good moisture. But that all of these combinations here are in our area. And native plants reduce stormwater runoff and erosion. The one on the right is in full sun. That is actually my mailbox garden. It's hot. You can see the purple coneflower, Monarda fistuloso, the shrubby St. John's wort. I also have hairy beard tongue and purple lovegrass in that garden, along with a whole bunch of others, but nice combination. And so not all native plants or plants like rich, moist soil. Those two plants on the left, the butterfly weed and the pearly everlasting, I think pearly everlasting is a host plant for the American lady butterfly, but those things are baking in hot sun next to the driveway and next to our walkway. So they are thriving together. The middle one is showy goldenrod and tall boneset. They are also in a dry, hot sun in the back. I'm going to add ironweed to that, blue sage, and probably put asters at their feet. On the right-hand side there, that is the blue mist flower I talked about, and a new plant that I found called stone root. They have delicate flowers, and they really look nice to each other. Partial shade, not too much moisture. Oh, and for now, native plants do bloom when your pollinators hopefully are needing them. The one on the left, that's that bush honeysuckle way down on the left in front of the begonias, or behind the begonias, that is the bush honeysuckle. To its right that's overflowing is that grow low sumac. I put a spice bush too close to the house, but too big to move now. That's a pagoda dogwood in the middle. I have some red twig dogwoods behind that. That was planted in fall of 2023. So it's not very old, and look at how big that is. It was used for a screen, and it is fulfilling its purpose. In the middle is purple coneflower and rattlesnake master at a friend's up north near West Canada Creek. Very hot, sunny location. I like that combination. On the right is an Amsonia with a small Fothergilla, full sun, and it gets pretty good moisture, but I thought I'd show you that for the fall combination. Oh, and native plants fight climate change, sequester carbon. All right, what else do? They don't require pesticides and fertilizers, and I do not use any of that. The one on the left and the one in the middle, that's the same garden front and back. I kind of call that my weed garden because I've got Joe Pye weed, I've got ironweed, I've got sneezeweed, I've got milkweed. Got a lot of weeds here. But I also have one of my favorite plants, and that's mountain mint. This is a transitioning area. We lost a tree, so now it's in full sun. It used to get a lot of water. Another tree's coming up behind it and taking up some of that moisture. So things change. Like I said, this is an evolving landscape here. And so the one on the right, that is my mailbox garden. Again, on the other side, gray-headed coneflower. Surprised the cardinal flower is doing so well because it likes a little bit of moisture. But I will say, now that I've taken out non-natives and put in so many natives in that spot, the health of my soil is improving. So there's a lot of plants there. That is a real biodiverse area, and the pollinators love this garden. And so the closest, require less watering once established if we're not in the middle of a drought. On the left-hand side, that is basically the closest I have to a cottage garden. That is in full sun, gets good moisture. Everybody seems to be getting along with each other quite well. And normally, wildlife likes native plants are good cover for wildlife if your critter isn't sunning itself on your stone steps. This little guy and all of his descendants love living under those stones. And I was right out in the garden while he was there, and he was not afraid of me at all. So on the right-hand side, the reason I showed that is that sun garden that I showed you before. But this is in the spring, and you can see, I leave milkweed right up there, but you can see all the different greens and all the different textures and how beautiful that is even before it starts blooming. I think that's hairy beard tongue way in the back. Okay, so some of my favorite plants. I love that mountain mint. So do the little blue hornets and all the pollinators. If you want, you can pop that in between some of your plants. Maybe you can get some deer to stay away. It won't keep them away totally, but mint does help. I love that hydrangea, the groundsel. The one on the right is shrubby St. John's wort. Nice foundation plant. It's nice and round, and the pollinators love that thing, and it has yellow blooms on it constant. Who else? My favorite. There's that hairy beard tongue. Pretty nice little round. Stays put. He's in like number 2. Goes around the mother plant. The American elderberry is a favorite plant. That bush honeysuckle, little yellow flowers, different colors for different times of the year. It's bushy. I use it as a ground cover, and I use it a lot. One of my favorite plants, that red columbine. The hummers love it as well. It does not like nice soil. It likes being in gravel. And so I have a huge bed of gravel there, and I scooped a little of it out, stuck some soil, and put this guy in, seeding himself everywhere. And it's a beautiful plant. Okay, the reason I put purple coneflower is I started purple coneflower from seed when I was about 40. In one of our horticulture classes, and I thought, well, you deserve a place here. And it is apparent to all the other purple coneflowers in the yard. Tall ironweed in the back, on the bottom there, that's the blue sage. It's a new plant that I tried. I really like it. Full sun, about this tall, I think it was. Pollinators seem to like it. That is the short clethra. It is another nice foundation plant. It likes some moisture. And then my most favorite plant, an understory tree, the serviceberry. The reason I showed you that front yard picture is the low-grow sumac is the one that's on the right-hand side. You can see it's beautiful fall color. It's really not that low. I planted, and you go, oh, gosh, look at that scraggly one on the side. But on the left there, I just planted that this fall, and so it should be huge next year. The yellow behind it is Amsonia, and I love it for its texture, but I took out some plants behind that right pumpkin, and I'm going to plant that yellow Amsonia for its fall color and its texture. But there you can see masses and repeating, and your eye really does move along. Okay, so you can see that I've used a lot of quotes by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And a very good friend of mine and I were able to take a course from her, actually in person, from her this past fall at ESF called Plant and Culture. She is a remarkable person. She is a scientist. She is a botanist. She's a mother. She's a writer. And she really inspires people, and she has inspired me during this whole native plant transition that I'm getting myself into. And she just started a group called Plant Baby Plant. That is in response to Drill Baby Drill. And she says, raise a garden, but raise a ruckus. And so most of you know me and know I am a climate and social justice activist. And I think this group really marries that with my native plant passion. So I know we can't save the world individually, but as with movements like the Wild Ones and climate and social justice, we really can make a difference working together. People who are working on something bigger than themselves with people who share that passion can really make a difference. And that's what gives me hope, because action comes hope. And hope without action is nothing but a wish. And so Robin wrote this last book called Bud Finds Her Gift. And I think we all have a gift. And in these difficult times, we all have a role. So I'm going to close by telling a story that I heard Robin tell about her and one of her students. They were at commencement, and the student was going into environmental protection. And Robin said to her, I am so sorry, because I went to the first Earth Day when I was in high school, and we're still working on this and fighting the same fight, and we haven't fixed it. I'm so very sorry. And the student she said, Dr. Kimmer, don't you know this is the best time to be alive? We're on the brink of a climate catastrophe. We're living at an age of the sixth extinction. And Robin looked at her and goes, and why is this a nice time to be alive? And the student went into this storytelling of Wile E. Coyote, the chaos and the chasing. And it always ends up at a cliff with a tippy board. And the person that's on that tippy board or whatever will fall into the abyss. And the student said, that's where we are right now. We are on that tippy board on a cliff. And Robin asked again, why is this time so important? And the student said, with a very young amount of wisdom here, she said, when everything is in the balance, it really matters where I stand. And she said, I have the gift of living at a time of purpose. I have a gift of knowing that every choice I make matters. And that is where we are right now. This is where we are. Our actions on behalf of the planet, on behalf of each other, on behalf of justice, all matter, and they all add up. And so, as Robin said, it matters where we stand, so plant your feet. So thank you for coming. Become a compassionate guardian. And there is my email address if you want to email me, ask for all the resources I have. But if you have a question, feel free to ask me. No question. Go ahead.
Deer.
Deer? Yes, deer. Yes, deer.
Deer pressure is, in this little village here, gone up immense
Mhm.
years, from almost non-existent to almost complete devastation.
Right.
Saturate only place. So what are, so you mentioned, this idea of not doing fencing and so forth, but how do you couple these two things together? Doing something like this, allowing those things to actually grow before they're raised.
Right. So, so we did not have any deer when we started this whole thing. And we had a lot of plants. And then all of a sudden, just like you said, the deer came, and they come in droves. And it is very much a problem. When I took that Heather and Zoe Evans one, the daughter says, I do ecological hunting. And I'm like, well, I live in the village. I can't hunt. And I don't have a gun, so that's not going to help me. But my answer, and it's not going to be that you're going to be able to go out there tomorrow and plant a plant that these deer will not eat. But we did for years. I was at one of your houses in Clinton, Sherry Whitney, and this woman next to her house had these water spigots going off, and it wasn't like the deer came up or whatever. It was just, they just needed to come by, and it was, detection, and the water went, the spigot just goes, and as soon as it did that, the deer ran off. So I said to John, hey, we got to try this. This might work. So it did for many years. We put 1, 2 of them out, and they would be coming from the back. So we would do that, and yeah, they never came during the day. We just did it at night. Then they started coming during the day. We started putting more out, and then they started coming from the front, and we were surrounded. And I was like, John, we're watering the neighbors, for goodness sake. And so we had to stop that. 2 years ago, because of this, and because I have so many plants, and it's such a small space that if they came and even walked in it, the gardens would be decimated. So we did put up a fence, but it is not a stockade fence. You can see through it. But not everybody can put up a fence. So there are some, and Jennifer has the book out front. There are some plants that are more resistant. Deer, if they are hungry, will eat anything. I think they chew on the side of your house, it seems. But so I would, and I have done it myself because I don't have a fence in the front yard. I have chosen plants that I think they might not eat as much, but they come around the corner, and in between our house and my neighbor's house sits an arrowwood viburnum that is like, no, they're not supposed to want it, but they're chomping on it as they come around the corner. So we have caged it. And then they seem to lighten up because deer don't stay usually in the same place forever. They like to move around. Then they may come back. So we do cage that. But the mint, people have said that you can put mint, get a friend with hostas that want to get rid of them and try and divert them. Debbie's using a little bit of fencing, but there is no, my friend of mine just said, Maggie, you know what I did for the deer? I said, no. She said, I got that Irish Spring soap and I made it into shavings and I've hung it up. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'd have to use like, cartons of it. But there is no real true answer to deer other than they're like an invasive species now. There's just so many of them. So I don't have one size fits all for deer. Anybody, go ahead.
Garden, my dogs love to dig.
How do I handle what in the garden? Oh, pets? Well, how much do you like that dog? We actually did have a dog that liked that, and we did do the invisible fence around the gardens, but I don't know if they don't like mint, like the smell of mint. But does anybody else? Jennifer, your dog used to love to dig in the garden. Yeah.
No. Sometimes they'll just pick up favors.
Yeah.
They like to do the new plant.
Kathy, do you have one?
Our dogs keep the deer away.
Oh, the dogs keep the deer away, so there's a positive to some of it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so one of your native plants that you're introducing, are food watering plants? I don't know how you have to
Yeah,
water.
so basically, a native plant is just like any other plant, doesn't need water. So I water them for like the first couple years. They say maybe 3 years to get it established. Most of the time I forget that I had just planted that plant. So yeah, I do water them in the beginning, just like, any other plant I would. But after a while, they develop such deep roots and they're meant to be there. So if you put them in, if that plant is meant to be in a wet area, then you need to give that plant that. That's what I'm saying, plant for what the land needs. You got to put that plant in the right place. If you do have a plant that they sometimes say, well, this plant can handle the sun, probably if it can handle partial shade and sun, means it needs to have some moisture to go along with it. But it doesn't mean that I'm watering out there. But I will say that in these terrible droughts that we have had the last couple of years in the fall, I have actually watered, which I have not done before. But other than when it was like blistering hot, have I ever watered a garden bed? But I have done that, but I don't normally have to do that. No. Go ahead.
Back to the deer. So it's a big problem, but I have fencing around my mate beds, and then I got these from Gardener's Supply, tomato cages, but
Yeah.
good tall sturdy ones.
Yeah.
It's about 5 feet high, and when I put a new plant in, I cage it.
Yes.
That helps, because the deer are drawn to the new plant, and then after whatever, a month, so it's movable cages is what. it
Yeah.
is, within fencing, but
Yeah.
it does keep the deer away.
And you're right. I mean, right now, if you came to the house, you got a cage garden out there. And I'm not caging it now for the deer, I'm caging it for the rabbits, because there are some of the plants that I have wanted to see how that thing blooms in the last 3 years, and they have eaten it to nothing right before it blooms. But you're going to go on webinars and they're going to say, oh, that's okay. They have acres of, plants. And if they eat a little, it's not so bad. But when you only have three and they ate two of them, so yeah, that was a very good answer. Cage them, and especially when they're young. And after about 3 years, they say that they don't want to eat them anymore because they're not as tasty. They don't have that sweet taste of new shoots as much. Go ahead.
Anything you could put under, hemlocks or eastern white pine, the deer strip off the little branches, so you got this gap of, 5 feet. Is there
Yeah.
something you could plant under there that would do well, or just in front of it, or that would fill in that gap?
Yeah, you probably could plant something, but it's not going to be around in the wintertime. So that's when they do really like to do that. That actually with cedars, I've seen them like pull it and strip it. I would probably cage it again. There are a lot of sites that have plants that are good. Like a friend of mine has black walnut. There are plants that go under black walnut. It is hard to plant to get lush underneath evergreens. That I do find is hard. But to keep deer away, they seem to walk all over everything. And it isn't even when they eat it, it's when they walk on it. So any other were there any other questions on Zoom? No, okay.
They're just asking if you can repeat the questions, but I couldn't.
Okay, sorry about that, Zoomers. Go ahead, George.
Do you like to get your shrubs and trees?
Well, is there anybody in the room who'd like to start a native garden nursery? Because we really do need more native garden nurseries, but I will travel for a plant. There's a new place. There were actually two new places that do plugs. I think they actually do trees and shrubs. I know you're going to go, this lady's crazy. I will go to Rochester. The other place he's meeting me in Oneonta, but where I get the majority of my trees and shrubs, which I have run out of room. I'm not sure I have any. I'm actually giving some away. I really like the Plantsman just outside of Ithaca. And what we do, and I mean, we're a small enough community here. You're like, well, I don't want to go down there. Well, I've been known to take a trip or two down with a van or a truck. And this is how I actually met, to go off on a tangent. Jennifer Geiger. I was like, I think at a rally here in Clinton, and we're talking, I introduced myself, she's telling me who she is, and she goes, I gotta go. I go, why do you have to go? Because I'm going down to Ithaca because I'm taking out the invasive Norway maples out of my garden, and I'm going to get 100 plants, and I have a truck, and my husband and I are going. I'm like, I've got to get to know this one. So I will go to the Plantsman. The other place that I do bring a lot of people to, he has very nice trees and bushes. He has natives interspersed, and that is only in Rome. But I will tell you that I am trying not to buy plants. I said I don't use pesticides at all. But what does happen when a nursery uses pesticides is it's very systemic and it can stay in there a long time. I believe he is only using not only, but he's using fungicides at times. It does dissipate. So I have actually asked Will, okay, you let me know when you're about ready to do that because I'm coming to get my plants before you actually do it. He's an extremely nice man, very knowledgeable with native plants. And he does have he has some straight species as well. So, but I do go to the Plantsman for a lot of my trees and bushes, and I will travel. This year, we have quite a few locations for plugs. And when I showed you that matrix design underneath the tree, don't be, hacking away with your root slayer. That's a new tool. Don't be hacking away with your root slayer because you can really do damage. So I like to use plugs so that I don't damage those roots of that tree. But we have a lot of places where we're getting plugs and they're cheaper than buying a plant. You can ask us about it. And I'm gonna go to Rochester because this lady's got plugs and then she's got nice plants too. I'm gonna go see.
I've received, I bought a few native plants from the Farmers Museum. They have a native plant sale, I think.
Oh, and anybody who knows of a place like this, write it down out front for us, because we really like to see, and this is getting to be very popular. So I think it's going to be like you said, Sharon.
The Mercury plant there.
Mm-hmm.
I got that one, you know, it's the one that looks like mercury when it's the water on it.
I would like to say I know. You'd have to give me more clues here.
Well.
Oh, okay. Well,
Ladies man.
oh, that's actually not native.
That's not native?
No, sorry. Yeah, you can, if you, so I am going to give my first talk again, and it's going to, at a couple of the garden centers, but if you want that, I'd be happy to do it, say at the Kirkland Art Center or something. That one goes over more of the, nuts and bolts of it. And then I do plan on doing another one, and I would like to do a foundation design, like to do a rain garden, and then just go over plants.
Is there type of like plant trading event? Cause like I'm always thinning out and like I only have so many friends to give stuff to and I don't want to talk to me anymore because I just so much. But I mean, I want to like buy my gardens and share the wealth too.
Well, then you need to join the wild one because we do work parties, we do sharing of our, the one thing I will say, be very, very careful. You got to be really careful with jumping worms. You're like, jumping worms? Yeah, they jump there and they will, I don't want any jumping.
Yeah.
So, you gotta be careful of taking plants from other people that might have jumping worms. Go ahead.
Bishop's feet.
Oh, no, Bishop's weed's not native. So you actually have to get my husband to come over because he's got like Bishop's weed is his nemesis. Yeah, and I will be honest, there is like on the side of our house, Bishop's weed had taken over. I had taken out all of the Bishop's weed, I thought. I even took some of the soil out. This when I was really young. I would probably not do that now, but what I have done, make sure if you do have Bishop's weed, do not let it go to seed because then it's everywhere. Don't transplant your plants like somebody I know and bring those plants to any other part of your garden. And you need to I do keep cutting it. And I know people say, don't do that. It's worse than, but I have, if it's in just one area, I will yank it out and put a plant immediately into that area. That is, I will say it's native. It can't be invasive, but it can be aggressive. So I would take that plant out and try and put as much of an aggressive ground cover. Depends whether you're in shade or you're in sun. But like Pacra ora, I might use it to replace it. But it is a constant taking it out and cutting it, never letting it go to seed. It's beautiful, but if you let it go to seed, you're going to have it everywhere.
I used to live in Onondaga County and the wild ones that.
Janet Allen is wonderful.
Yes, she's wonderful.
She's an inspiration too.
Yeah,
she really is.
Absolutely. And one of the programs that the Onondaga County Wild Ones chapter has is in the spring, and I know for sure in the fall, but I think also in the spring is they will make a run to some local plant nurseries.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you what you can order. And then they'll bring them in and deliver them on a schedule that they know. If
you get Jennifer's newsletter, Jennifer has in there right now a list of the plug places right now. And if you go, I'm gonna pitch for this guy. If you want to get plugs right now, he's taking orders. I've worked with him. It's called Barkaboom. Jennifer's newsletter has the website. And if you put in your order form, say Utica, even though you might live in Clinton, Utica, we're going to go and he may deliver them here if he gets enough orders. And so we're, and if not, I will get a truck somehow and go. I met him last year in Oneonta. I think he's in like Margarettsville or something. I don't know where that is, but Barkaboom. I'm also going to Spice Bush Swallowtail. Actually, sign up for Jennifer's newsletter. She'll send you that information. But there's several plugs. And if you get in with the wild ones, like we'll be going down to Plantsman several times. And if somebody's got a truck, that's how you build your community, and you'll find lots of people if you're giving away native plants. And if you're giving away hospice, you've got somebody who needs them over there who needs to feed them to his deer, But that does, Debbie, do you think it works a little bit?
Yes. All
Got my hostas now. Yes.
And I have a large yard, less than 1.5 acres, and a lot of it's grass, so I'm slowly putting in the hedgerow and other things. But I started by putting them all across the back, because they go from one side to the front corner, and then they divide and conquer. If you look from the upstairs windows, it looks like that FlightAware program, just it's everywhere. But it works really well till about July, and then they're all mowed down, and then they just move in a little further. So it does kind of help in the early as things are starting to grow. I can see where some things are that I might need to protect. My ultimate goal is hopefully to have enough that I don't have to worry about it, but they come through regularly.
Yes.
So
Know their
I have
paths.
Sort of a couple areas, and they do eat them. They look lovely for a little while, and then they're gone. But it does reduce the amount of destruction early in the season.
Yeah.
Later in the season, all that's off.
Yeah.
So
So
Would you recommend an aggressive ground cover for shade, lots of trees?
So one of the ones that I like is Pacra Aura. That is a ground cover if you want to, yeah, it's that ground cell. Let's see if I can find it here. Is it going there? Changing up there? It is that golden ragwort right there. Pacra Aura. That might need moist. The other thing is, I don't know, like everybody thinks of a little plant for a ground cover. Yes, of course, if you're in with other plants and you want that. But I also like to use that bush honeysuckle and low growth sumac, because that will cover an area and you only need like one plant. I have a low growth sumac that's on the near the driveway, and I have to hack it back before winter so that we can snow blow. But that one low growth sumac is, it's got to be 8 feet long, and will probably get to be 8 feet wide. So, I mean, they're huge if they like where they are and they spread. So you don't have to think of it, a ground cover always as just a smaller plant. Unless, of course, you've got other plants that you were going to have.
Is it bush?
Bush honeysuckle, that is, where is it? Boom. That is that plant on the left. I used to have another plant in there, and Jennifer said to me, Maggie, that bush honeysuckle's gonna get big, I'm like, really? It did. It did. That's the bush honeysuckle. Okay, I'm just moving. So this is the bush honeysuckle. This is a gorgeous plant. It gets that little yellow flower I showed you, and that is only 1 or 2 plants right there. It's at the feet of the pagoda dogwood, and it is just, it bushes over, it's gorgeous. The other one is the low growth sumac, and you can use it as a ground cover. Where did I have that? Yeah. This is the that's the low growth sumac up there. And it's also very big. Now, both of those plants can be used in sun and part shade. Yeah. Dense shade is a different thing. But there are definitely ground covers that are good for, I love the Packer myself. Go ahead.
You say you're having another talk this year?
I'm gonna do my first talk at one garden club. I don't know if they allow people to come, but I don't know. But then I have one in June 18th at the Cazenovia Library. Yeah. So, but I'm more than willing if the community wants me to do my first one again, if you could find me a place to talk, I'd be happy to do it. I'd be happy to do it.
I just want to pass on what I did for a sturdy deer fencing. One of the things I did is that I found the cheapest way to do it with sturdiest thing is get rebar from like Home Depot, get a 10-foot length, a half inch. And it's pretty, it's only like $9. You cut it in half, so you got 2 5-foot pieces, drive them into the ground a foot, and then get your welded wire fencing, 5 foot high or 4 foot high, whatever, or 4 foot high, because it's in the ground, it's in the ground a foot, and then just wire it up, and it's sturdy as could be, it's expensive, and you've created this some kind of like micro environment there,
right?
That the grass grows up and everything else, and the birds just go in there and have a field day.
Yeah. One thing we did do, that gentleman left, is one winter we actually did put up the green rebars or fence post things, and we put up the black fencing because I think one of our friends has it now, but that helped keep them out in the winter because we couldn't use the water spigots in the winter. And they would come in and they would really do a lot of damage in the winter. So we did do something similar to that. Did anybody else have any questions? Sherry?
I know a few people trying the no-till. When you're putting in the new plant, what are you doing to prepare and how are you implementing the no-tilling?
So I don't till at all. The soil, when you till, you're letting the carbon from the ground release into the air. And also what you're doing is, there's a whole world under there. We only see the world from the top of the soil up, but there's a whole world in there that's taking care of your plants, and you really don't want to disturb them. Even when I plant, I try not to disturb as much as possible. So I just take a shovel. Like if I'm putting in a tree or a bush, I just, however big that is, and this goes again, there's that change of what you were doing before, is I used to go, okay, if I got a pot this big, I gotta have a massive hole. No, you really don't need to do that. You basically dig a hole and put your plant in it, and that's all you do. This isn't about changing our soil at all. These native plants, if they are meant to be here and you put them in the right location, they will live. You don't have to amend your soil. I do add compost, like I said, because I don't have the original native soil in my area, but I don't till at all. I don't have a rototiller. I don't smush my soil up or anything.
The same for vegetables, flowers?
I do a CSA for vegetables. We had clay, and so we started with a vegetable garden. And our carrots ended up being about this tall and about this wide. So we don't do vegetables, but yes, for flowers, I do the same thing. But I'll add compost around the flowers, and they do really well if I put them in the right place. And if I don't put them in the right place, I'll move them.
You use plant tone at all?
I use plant tone in my containers. I use plant tone. Plant tone is an organic fertilizer. And if I'm putting annuals into the ground, I sometimes will, but I'm even going away from that because they really don't want to screw with the microbes that are in the ground. But no, plant tone is the one thing that I will use, especially in containers, because the containers don't have natural soil. Anybody else have a question? Or you're all more than welcome to come over to the house and I'll show you what I do. And that's the nice thing about the wild ones is we do tours, we go to each other's house and we see, well, what do you have? I go to Mary Ann's house and see her 8 foot tall plant that's only supposed to be 3 feet tall and, see how people do things because everybody does things different. They really do. But, we try and stay using native plants and I try to use straight species as much as I possibly can. And I'm ripping everything out, so, but. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much. Yes. Yeah, there's a small and then the bigger one. They all have a really nice switchgrass.
Yeah.
They don't. Anything that didn't want to really nice.
And now, like, so you say like a native culture. What about like Corabelle, where they have such interesting like? I know there's native. You guys have
Some people will, and there's some that are better than others. If they haven't changed the leaf color, I'll use it. Because when they change the leaf color, the pollinators can't use it as opposed to yeah.
And what would you say to people? I probably should ask this question. What would you say to people who were like, "But I like my life, I like my days in the leaf"?
That's okay because
10%, would you say?
well, they say that if you have 70% by volume, then you're doing okay. So I would say leave them and keep